And now to Paul Ryan. He's in trouble, again, for comments he made about poverty, again. And this time, it's not about a fake school lunch story or a much-maligned report slamming the war on poverty. No, this time, it's regarding his beliefs about poverty and, to quote him, the cultural problem in our inner cities. The latest trouble for Ryan came Wednesday morning when he went on the radio show of a well-known conservative, Bill Bennett. The two of them started talking conservative policy about race and poverty, specifically why it's so difficult to break the cycle of the cyclical nature of poverty in certain segments of society. Now, in theory, nothing wrong with that, right? Until Ryan said this.
You know, your buddy Charles Murray or Bob Putnam over at Harvard, those guys have written books on this, which is we have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular, of men not working and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. And so there's a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with.
Now, our friend at Think Progress, Igor Volsky, was the first to report on the exchange, and since then, the blowback has been intense, coming most prominently from Democratic House Leader Nancy Pelosi, who called it deeply ignorant, shameful, and disturbing, and from Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who called the comments a thinly veiled racial attack. In fact, the blowback's been so substantial, Ryan issued a statement to NBC News this morning. It reads in part, "After reading the transcript of yesterday morning's interview, it is clear that I was inarticulate about the point I was trying to make. I was not implicating the culture of one community, but of society as a whole. We have allowed our society to isolate and quarantine the poor rather than integrate people into our communities. The predictable result has been multi-generational poverty and little opportunity. I also believe the government's response has inadvertently created a poverty trap that builds barriers to work. A stable, good-paying job is the best bridge out of poverty." And joining me now on the phone is Democratic Congresswoman Barbara Lee from California. She serves on the House Budget Committee, which is chaired by Congressman Ryan. And, of course, she was one of the first, if not the first, to publicly criticize him for his remarks. So, Congresswoman, I understand that Congressman Ryan reached out to you after your criticism. What can you tell us about that call?
Well, it was a very good conversation, and I tell you, this conversation needs to happen, though. We need to really realize that, you know, a lot of people just don't get it. When you talk in the way he has talked, you know, we have to remember that race is still a factor in America. We have to really understand that there's systemic and institutional biases and racism that has really created a lack of opportunity for many in urban communities. And in fact that, yes, a good-paying job is a way out of poverty, but as chair of the Budget Committee, then the chairman, and I've explained this, he's got to support policies that create jobs and opportunity, such as workforce training, such as education, such as not cutting food stamps. So, you know, I'm trying to explain to him and to others that this budget reflects these very out-of-step values, and it reflects a lack of understanding of the real issues that are being faced in urban America, especially with brown and black men.
And I mean, one of the things I think when you commented on his comments and put them in a racial context, I guess one of the reasons that a lot of people are looking at his comments askance is that he did quote Charles Murray, the author of The Bell Curve, who has some very pointed beliefs about African Americans' intellectual abilities and about the causes of poverty being quote-unquote cultural. Are those some of the reasons that you were so upset by his remarks?
Well, when I saw that, I could not believe that he would refer to Charles Murray. And I'm going to talk to him further about this because, yes, I'm quite concerned because that goes back to these theories of genetic inferiority and, you know, stuff that is so outdated but still, you know, fans the flames of those in America who really don't want to see opportunity for all. And so we need a debate about poverty and not blame people who don't have those opportunities for living in circumstances which, if we invest our tax dollars into initiatives that create jobs and opportunity, you would see people being elevated out of poverty. I raised two young African-American boys. They're phenomenal African-American men. And I've got to tell you, it was very difficult, but it was because the support was there for me to go to college, for me to, I was on welfare, food stamps, the whole 9 years. I never would have made it. My boys, men, would never have turned out the way they have turned out had it not been for opportunities that I was able to take advantage of. Those opportunities are being eroded daily by the Ryan budget. And so we have to understand, while these comments, I think, reflect, a heck of a lot of lack of understanding and ignorance, they also reflect values and perspectives that drive his budget. And that is unacceptable, and people need to try to educate the public, especially the Republicans, about what it means to live in urban America with the disinvestment and the lack of resources and the lack of priorities focused on our communities.
Well, and also the fact that rural poverty is actually greater than urban poverty. In fact, serving on that budget committee with Congressman Ryan, is this a debate that is now spilled into the open, but that you guys have been having for a while? Because as you mentioned, the Ryan budget and the priorities he's put forward are a lot about cutting social services, cutting back on SNAP, cutting back on the services that go to the nation's neediest. Is this a debate that you guys have been having? And what is his answer when you present your personal story and say, listen, these programs helped me, people like me, to be lifted out of poverty? What is his response generally?
Well, he says they failed, and he conducted a poverty tour, and we had hearings on poverty, and he's got his report. The Republicans have a report on poverty, and they clearly are trying to show through flawed data that the war on poverty did not work. Here we're 50 years into it, and believe you me, Head Start, Food Stamps, Higher Education Act, the Civil Rights Act, all of those federal initiatives that created the foundation for opportunities for people like myself, they have been successful. So what Chairman Ryan is trying to do is debunk those initiatives through the proposals for these huge budget cuts and trying to blame the poor and trying to do what he said in his statement in terms of trying to, say that it's generations of people men who have not seen other men working. And, well, come on, people want to work. 99.9% of people in urban communities want those opportunities to work and workforce training. So we have this debate. Fortunately, it's beginning. I have to just say, race has not been part of many debates here in Congress because you're always accused, perhaps, of playing the race card. Well, I tell you, I think, until we have a country that stands for liberty and justice for all, we have to discuss the unfinished business of America, and that's racial justice, it's economic justice, it's social justice for everyone, so everyone can be included in this great society and in the American dream. Until that happens, we can't sweep race under the carpet.
Well, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, you are a large part of making sure that discussion goes forward. I know you're running around to votes, et cetera, so thank you so much for joining us.